My name is Heather Conger, and your teacher and guide today is going to be Christian Sundberg, who most of you are aware of. So our evening will go as follows. Christian will present to us, and then we'll do our Q&A portion. And then after that, we're going to stop the recording and we'll do a group meditation. So we're so happy to have all of you here. Recordings will go out. Those of you who are joining us from faraway places, feel free to leave whenever is convenient for you. And we're so happy to have you all here. So take it away, Christian.
Thank you so much, Heather. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining from all over the world. This is exciting. So, this is week number 2 of our 3-week series. And this topic of meditation, as I mentioned last week, is one that is so dear to my heart. It's such an important topic. And I am so happy that we have time to set aside to focus on it and discuss it. And so we decided to break it into 3 pieces because it's not the best necessarily to sit and listen for an hour and a half or something on this one topic. But last week we focused on what meditation is and what it is not. And I'll give kind of a brief recap here before we get started. This week we're going to focus on methodology and process and tips and tricks as we actually engage that process. So this is kind of the more practical, like, what are you actually doing in your mind type focus tonight. And the third session will be focused primarily on implications of meditation, benefits, what it means for life, and the effects of meditation, which can be quite surprising, actually. So with that, I'm going to dive right in because I'm very passionate about this. There's a lot we could potentially talk about, even though you can't really talk about meditation effectively. It's like I said last week, meditation is not primarily the action form that it takes. It's primarily a move in consciousness towards consciousness. And consciousness itself transcends form. So I know that sounds kind of mystical, but that's really important to lift up every time because it's very easy in the physical universe to think that what we're doing is this action and it has this physical result and you do A to get B and that's what meditation is. It's okay to think of it like that to start, and that's why we're having these kind of conversations because it can be very beneficial. But at the heart of it, meditation is not an action. It is a movement in consciousness. It is a shift in focus. So I tried to provide kind of a simple, like, I don't know, just kind of some kind of definition I might throw out there last week. It's a use of intent to choose focus with alertness towards consciousness itself. And synonyms for meditation then include, like we mentioned last week, looking for the space between thoughts. So not thinking, but becoming aware of the space that is between thoughts. Investigating the wall of the mind. So that is the knowing quality that is always present, that is witnessing. And to move towards full absolute awareness, clarity. Meditation is a move towards full alertness. It is not anything in the direction of, sleep. Though sleep happens. It's okay if sleep happens. What I mean is meditation in its purest sense is not itself a falling asleep into some form. It's actually the movement away from that. So thinking is actually a type of form that we fall asleep into. Meditation is a movement away from that towards even greater alertness. Meditation is a saying a full yes to this present moment. So it is not rejecting anything, not trying to change anything, actually. It's being fully allowing and fully seeing. And a last synonym that we mentioned last week is meditation is feeling alive. It is aliveness. And aliveness feels good. And then one last comment from last week, just to set the context. So it's also important to remember that the intention that we bring into meditation is very important. So because meditation is primarily a use of intention, it is an exercise in focus and intention in the form of focus. And the quality of the intention that we bring into it is important. So for instance, if you sit down and think, oh, I'm going to meditate because look, I'm really spiritual or I want to do this special thing, then that's your intention. Versus having the intention, I actually want to go see what I am beneath thoughts. Like, I really want to see. Those are different qualities of intention, and your meditative experience will reflect the intention that you bring into it. Okay, so that's kind of a super quick recap from last week of just certain points. I'm going to jump right into methodology. I hate even using the word methodology in the context of meditation, but it is important. And the process itself. Okay, so before I kind of hone in on what I think is the heart of the process, at least how I've experienced it, because everybody experiences this differently, I want to lift up the importance of sticking to it. And there's two ways that I mean this. One, when you pick an exercise to do, stick with it for a while, like months, actually, a few months maybe, before you even judge the result of whether or not that process works for you. And also, overall, don't judge your results early. Stick to the process in the long term. Because meditation is one of those things that it's not obvious at the beginning, especially what's happening. This is about a change in your relationship to form. And you've lived your whole life. I mean, usually we have lived our whole lives deeply associated into form. And so this is about a new relationship to the present moment. And practically speaking, that can take time. So it's okay if it takes time, and it is good to stick to a long-term practice and to be very patient with yourself and not judge the progress early. Okay, so now a methodology or a process. I'm going to break down meditation into two big steps. I mentioned these briefly last week, but we're going to go into this more detail this week. Even though I don't like breaking it into steps, and even though it doesn't have to be two steps, it can be immediate. It'd be like saying there are steps to appreciating a sunset. There are no steps. You shift in consciousness and you look at the sunset. Investigating consciousness is like that. But we will lift up two steps. The first broad step is to regain control of your focus. So, what do I mean by that? Typically, in the human experience, we are lost in the constant stream of thinking and in the constant stream of association with the story and focusing into all the sense data, the sight, the sound, the touch that makes this reality so tangible. The first broad step is a practice in consciously regaining control of what you are focused on so that you can choose your focus consciously and with alertness. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because even thoughts themselves, you'll notice as you meditate that you might sit down, okay, I'm going to meditate now, and whatever form that we're about to discuss some forms, whatever form you choose, you may find 1.8 seconds into it, you're thinking about lunch. That's okay. That's okay. But you might not even recognize for 10 seconds of thinking that you're thinking about lunch. You might get onto the thought of lunch, and then you're thinking about bread, and you're thinking about bologna, and you're thinking about your daughter, and then you're thinking about this all, and then you realize, oh, I just went on a thought train. You actually didn't have any control during that thought train. You weren't choosing your focus consciously. The thought stream took you away with it. And so the first major step in meditation is to regain control of focus so that you can, with alertness, catch yourself and then choose something to focus on that you select rather than being lost in the constant dream of thinking. And the second broad step is once we can do that, now again, these don't have to be two steps, but practically speaking, at least in my own case, I've found this to be very important. The second broad step is then when you're ready and when the momentum of thought has slowed sufficiently, you can turn your attention towards consciousness itself, beingness itself, life itself. and you can experience it, focus into it, and look at it with full alertness, feel it, be it, know it. That is truly where magic arises. But I'm putting it as a second step because it's important to not do that too early, actually. At least that's how I feel. Okay, so in step number one, in order to regain control of focus, I have found it useful to pick something neutral to focus on to start. Step number one. Like I remember the very first day I ever meditated. It's so funny, but I remember laying in the hammock in my backyard and picturing a sword, which is not a very neutral object, but at the time it felt like a good idea. So I focused on the image of a sword in my mind and I traced my mind around the blade and I could see the shininess and I could feel the edge if I wanted. I don't think I would do that now, but I'm just mentioning that it almost doesn't matter the object of the focus as long as you stay with it. And if your mind is very active, you may benefit from a more active object of focus. So that means if you try to focus on something mild, like let's say a shape, like a square or a circle or the sound of a mantra, and you find that you're really having a hard time focusing on just that one thing, well, you can make it more active. So early in my meditation journey, I found that I benefited from the combination of a shape and a mantra at the same time. And so I would draw in my mind, I would envision a square. And as I touched every corner of the square, I would say a neutral sound and I would repeat it like za ba la ring. Completely meaningless, neutral sounds. Mantras are like that. But that's because they don't have association. They're not going to prompt a thought. They're more just picking a neutral form. And so I picked both an image and a sound in my mind because I needed both to start. I needed something that was more engaging. I needed to try harder, actually, in order to be able to pick something neutral. But it does not have to be like that. We can pick any neutral object that we so choose. It could be a shape, like I mentioned. I like a shape because it's neutral and you can trace it around in your mind. A sound, like a mantra. It could be a mix. It could be an object. It could be a place, though those are more active. And I probably wouldn't primarily recommend those because they probably have other associations that will pull you in. It could be something that is simply present here now. For instance, the breath. The breath is a very common object of focus because if you're focused on your breathing, by definition, you're not focused on all the thinking about the future and the past because you're just focused on this thing that is happening now, this breathing thing. It's always here now while we're alive anyway. And so we can focus on that present thing, the breath. Another thing that is always present is the body, feeling the body. We can do what's called body scans, shifting the intention of focus through the body, starting with, for instance, the head and working our way very carefully down all the way to the toes and back. Now, I personally don't follow that exercise for like true meditation because that is a form. It is an object of focus and it has a lot of content to it. It's not exactly, it's definitely something that's kind of laden with meaning and it can have a lot in there. But if you're having trouble focusing on something in the present moment, it is very useful to bring your attention there, and your body loves the attention anyway. It's very good for the health of the body to have your aliveness focus there. Okay, so I don't necessarily recommend that though in if we're trying to get towards the real heart of experiencing consciousness itself. I recommend, though, choosing whatever of these works for you that allows you to regain control of focus. And I'll lift up just one last one. You can say the statement in your mind, I am, and then don't finish it. Just say I am and feel the space that remains at the conclusion of the statement. Okay, now, like I said, don't do all six of these at once, or however, or whatever you choose, or whatever you create. Stick with it for quite a while. Pick one and do it for weeks or even a few months. definitely stick with it through the session, or at least half of your session. Like if you're moving too quickly between methodology, then that's a new form that you're thinking about and focused on, and we're trying to actually regain control of focus. So it's good not to flip the object too much. Okay, so now there's this question that always comes up here as we begin to trace a shape in our minds, as we begin to pick a mantra and listen to it, or as we begin to pick something that's present. We find, especially when we start, that it is not easy, okay? Because the thoughts are coming in, man. They're coming in. They're really important today. They're always important today. That's what they say. And they're going to get your attention. Okay, so there's this question about effort versus non-effort that I want to speak about. Is meditation an exercise of effort, or is meditation an exercise of non-effort? Beingness itself requires absolutely no effort. Existing takes absolutely no effort. It's easier than breathing. And that is the direction that meditation is moving towards. So, in the purest sense, meditation is no effort. However, a big however, however, while we are deeply wrapped into the association with the form of the physical world, and while we're thinking so much, I'm here to at least assert in my own experience that is not practically useful to just immediately assume that this is a no effort activity. Because when we are lost in thought, we can't find the beingness. We can't feel the beingness. We're only thinking. We're only seeing. We're only associated with the story. We're only the pain, right? And so if we can't stay focused on the neutral object that we choose, I do recommend, at least initially, some effort. Might be a little controversial in certain meditation circles, but at least for me, it might take some effort to stay focused on the shape or on the mantra to start. Because basically you are putting your foot down and you're saying, no, wait a minute. No, I'm not thinking about lunch right now. I'm choosing to think about this neutral thing right now. It's the metaphor I used last week was if you're in a whirlpool and the water is carrying you around in a circle, if you stop walking, the water will still carry you around, or the river of thought momentum will still carry you downstream. So, practically speaking, if the water is hitting you in the face, it may take some effort to plant your feet in the sand for a minute and to stand firm. You can feel where the effort versus the non-effort is applicable. It's okay if it takes effort in the beginning. It's okay if you have to exert some I don't want to say forceful, but some pure intention to stand firm in this moment and to see. That's okay. But beingness itself takes no effort, and that is the direction we're moving. So when we eventually get to a place where we have control of focus and we can be present, it is not about effort. Okay, so another question we often hear is, well, what to do about the thoughts? I keep thinking, they keep coming up. I don't know what to do with them. 3 quick comments. First, return to the meditation focus. It's okay that you're thinking. Meditation is actually the moment where you catch, oh, I'm thinking again, and move back towards the thing that you chose. That catching, that intention that you set to catch yourself, that is a changing in the momentum. So don't judge yourself for it. That's the second thing. Don't judge yourself again for focusing on thoughts. You've been doing it your whole life. It's okay. You can be gentle with yourself. So don't judge. Just let it go. Just let the thought go. It's okay. And 3, stand clear and firm time and again. It's okay. Stand clear and firm. The thought comes, stand clear and firm. A thought comes, okay, stand clear and firm. You don't have to judge yourself. You're not doing anything wrong. It might happen 1,000 times. These thoughts keep coming, man. They're persistent. Stand clear, stand firm, return to your object of focus into the present moment. Return to the present moment. This process of slowing down the thought momentum, practically speaking, can take time. It doesn't have to take time. It can happen very swiftly. If we fully are immersed and engaged with what we're doing, it actually can happen quite swiftly that we regain clarity. But if you don't regain clarity, don't lose heart. Don't get discouraged. It can take, practically speaking, time and practice to do this. I recommend about 40 minutes a day, every day, and do it for at least 3 months before you judge the results. And a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't have time to do that." Okay, really? Really? Okay. Because there's a great phrase in the East I love. If you, I forget exactly how it goes, but it's something to the effect of meditate for 1 hour a day, unless you don't have time, and then meditate for two. The idea is that your thoughts are going to seem very important. You can let that go. You can let that go. All the demands of your life, you can take 40 minutes out of your day and return to focusing on what you really are. Because cheat sheet ending, and we're going to spend a whole week talking about this next week because it helps with the motivation to do this, to know the incredible benefit. But cheat sheet ending, your true nature is love and peace and freedom and joy, and it's real, and you can feel it. And it can come through you and be experienced, and it will make, how do I put this? I don't want to say it make it, when you feel your true nature, all of the physical experience that you're having becomes lighter and is enlightened by this joy. And it's like saying when someone says, "I don't have time to meditate," I just gently want to say, "You don't have time to be joyful?" Really? Okay. If you've got really serious things to do, that's fine. It's your choice. It's always your choice. But I'm just lifting up that joy that is possible is it's so much deeper than any thought or activity can provide to you because it's our true nature underneath all of the painful form association that we have lost ourselves in. So you could think of this whole process as less about going towards some new thing called meditation and this object of focus and everything we just talked about, and more about putting down what you're not. Less about going and getting a new thing, and more about putting down all the crap that you aren't as a spiritual being. And then you might say, "Well, I'm really busy because I'm carrying around all this garbage." Okay, that's fine. You can put down the garbage, man. You're allowed. You're totally allowed. Okay, so that is step one. There's a lot more we could say, but the way that will be experienced by each person is quite unique and personal. And for sake of time, I'll move on. But if there are any questions around that, because I know there's a lot of subtlety about how that's experienced in the mind, that would be excellent to talk about. So the second big step is to investigate awareness itself. Investigate the knowing quality of the mind itself. Investigate life itself. Where do you find this? It's what you are. Okay, but I'll point out a few things that might help you locate that. One, it is spaciousness. So if I asked you, and we're not going to do this at length right now, I'll just say it quickly for sake of time. But if I asked you, close your eyes and find the boundary of your mind, I challenge you to find a boundary. Where is the boundary? Well, you might initially come up with maybe the boundary of the body in the form of skin sensations and all that stuff. Or if I asked you, how about the boundary of your aliveness, the aliveness you feel in your body? Tell me where its edge is. Not the sensation of the skin, the aliveness itself. Tell me about the boundary. You will find there is no boundary. It has no edge. It is just spaciousness, boundaryless, aliveness. One way to locate this is there's a hand exercise you can do where you just close your eyes and you ask yourself, how do I know that I have a hand? Now, at first, you'll identify maybe there's a little breeze in the air and you can feel a little of the cool breeze on the skin and there's a little bit of sweat evaporating, so it feels a little bit cold. Okay, I'm not even talking about that. Go deeper. How do you know that you have a hand if you're not even feeling the sensations of the skin? You might locate there's this aliveness. It feels like it's in your hand. Actually, your hand is in the aliveness. It's backwards, but anyway, you'll feel this aliveness. That is the body of your awareness. You are the aliveness. And then another synonym is look for the living quality of the mind or the wall of the mind. Look towards your mind itself. Look towards the knowing quality itself. These things are actually all one thing, but I'm just trying to point at them in different ways. This aliveness, this consciousness is not a thing that you find, not a new form. It's what you are. It's actually the most familiar thing to you. It's closer to you than your own breath, but you might have lost sight of it in thinking, oh, I have these important bills to pay, and I am this human with these problems. You may overlook the aliveness for the density of the story. This aliveness, this consciousness, it feels good. It feels so good. When you get in touch with it, it will feel good. It's a compass we can keep in mind as we go through the meditation journey. If it feels stressful and hard, you're probably trying too hard. But being alive, being vibrant, it feels good. And you might find, oh, but I think there's these reasons I can't be that. Maybe I'm shameful. Maybe my body is the wrong shape, or I'm ill. Whatever these ideas are, whatever these stories are, the aliveness does not actually care about that. It already shines. It can't be less alive, even if the body is ill, you see. Find that. Experience it. Spend time feeling it. And then another quick cheat sheet. And then by the way, when you feel that, that stuff, that aliveness, it actually transcends the physical universe. So I don't want to get too stimulating here. But what's really, really amazing is when we really touch that and feel that aliveness and allow it to flow through us, larger parts of the self may rise up. That's for next week, though. Okay, so you may have heard in meditation this idea about being the observer. So you aren't the objects observed, you are the one watching the objects. The path towards discovering that experientially is alertness and clarity. It's not a new imagined thought. It's not a new idea. Oh, I'm some observer. Let me go find it. No, it's looking experientially in consciousness. Some people may ask, what is the goal of meditation? Is there a goal? The purest answer is there are no goals. But the more practical answer is the goal is to experience what you really are. Don't make up anything. Go experience what you are. Find what you are. Feel what you are. That's the goal. Put down all the crap that you're not. That's the goal. And and then how will you know if you succeeded? Now, I don't like to think of meditation in terms of success ever, actually. I think it's not helpful because on earth we like to think, did I do it or not? Did I succeed or not? It's really helpful to be super gentle with yourself in this process because if you're grabbing and judging, that's that thought, that could be yet ego. You don't need to worry about succeeding. You don't have to succeed to be alive. You see, you're already alive. So this is about going and finding that thing. And when you find it, it will feel good. You will feel more alive. You'll feel more relaxed. You'll be more clear. And you'll begin to see thoughts for what they are. And we'll talk about that more in week 3. Okay, now, quickly, because I'm already at about half an hour, 6 tips and tricks to keep in mind as we go through meditation. Okay, number 1, I mentioned this already, but this is important. Have no expectations. Be easy on yourself. If you are frustrated, it's okay. You're probably trying too hard. Having no expectations is such a magical and important ingredient to actually getting in touch with our true nature. But the willingness that you bring into it, you see, that's having no expectation along with the willingness. That's very important. The willingness to actually see and actually feel exactly what you are and exactly what is. Okay, tip number 2. Your thoughts are not that important. I know they feel super important. They aren't. Like, I'm not trying to immediately dismiss or throw away the meaning or value of all the things in your life that seem valuable. I'm not meaning to do that. But I found in my own meditation journey and in my own awakening There is never actually a time that my thoughts are so important that I can't let them go for 40 minutes. There's never actually a time that they're that important. Your true nature, your powerful, connected, loving, joyful, shining, brilliant true nature is the most valuable, important thing. Thoughts in the physical universe are quite second. So I'm just saying that because you can give yourself permission to identify, oh my, for these 40 minutes, just for these 40 minutes, you can get back to thinking your important thoughts when you're done. For these 40 minutes, I give myself complete permission to drop all these thoughts. Complete 100% permission. 100% permission to drop all these thoughts for these 40 minutes. Okay, number three. Okay, this is subtle, but I think it's really important. And I thought a few times today about how to say this. So, number three, in meditation, feel what you are doing in and with your body. Okay, now I know this is risky because I'm not saying focus on bodily sensations. But what I mean is your bodily presence is a part of your full present awareness. So as you grow in meditation, it becomes not simply some exercise of the mind, it becomes an exercise of all of you that is present. And that feels like the body. And one comment here about the body, this is super interesting. The thought momentum that you're experiencing is not just because you told the thoughts they're important, that you did tell them that, that's why they're showing up. The thoughts are also arriving because the body becomes biologically addicted to thinking. So you know how like if you watch the TikTok all day, and now you get this itch. Oh, I got this itch. I gotta go see the TikTok, and I'm being a little silly because I see my family doing it all the time. But you get kind of addicted to the stimulation. It's not deep stimulation, it's shallow, it's quick, it's stimulating. Thoughts are just like that. And your body actually gets chemically addicted to this constant hit of scratching the next stitch, scratching the next stitch, watching the next TikTok video, thinking the next thought, thinking the next thought, thinking the next thought. As you really deeply challenge that and return to a full present awareness, as you do that, you may find that the body will, at first, you may notice it kind of craves, little craving. Give me a new thought, give me a new focus. And then you might notice this really interesting thing. This is super subtle, but I hope somebody experiences this so they can think back and realize, oh, that's what that is. As you do that, your body might start to tickle or create little sensations like on the face or somewhere where there's nerves, no, fingers or something, but I often experience it on the face where the body is like almost like trying to get your attention. You might find yourself scratching your cheek or something because there's this little tickle that the body lifts up. It's like the body is all of a sudden being starved of the drug of this thought addiction. And now it's like, wait, scratch me, please. Now this is a little subtle when I'm trying to describe, but I'm lifting it up because you're basically also changing the relationship with the bodily experience. You don't know you're doing that, but you're teaching your body a new way. You're teaching your body that you don't need to be thinking well, 5 times a second. I was going to say every 5 seconds, but it's more frequent than that. And so as you go through meditation, this third trip is bring your body with you and bring your bodily awareness with you and let that learn too. It's not just the mind, it's the body. Okay, and the fourth thing is clearly define the time of meditation. So in my experience, I have found it's incredibly valuable to set a timer. Now, do you need to set a timer? Of course not. However, defining the time clearly is giving yourself a physical permission slip. And that permission slip can help to make that time period distinct and to make the way that you respond to thoughts, to give yourself that permission distinct. During this 40 minutes, I am completely letting everything go. And that way, also, by the way, the other reason that I found a timer to be super helpful is because if you do have a shift in consciousness and state of consciousness and you begin to have a non-physical experience, you can go with it. I don't want to get too stimulating to the ego here, but if you become non-local, if as there's a timer set, you feel more free to let go and let that happen because you know there's something in the physical that'll pull you back when it's time to be done. Okay, and number 5, no resistance at all. So number one was have no expectations, but number five is different. Having no resistance means allow whatever arises. So even though we've kind of talked about the place of effort and holding a form, as you go further down into the meditation journey, it's really important to be so non-resistant to what arises that you see very clearly what is actually there. Be curious and alert and experiential. Be willing to see whatever is down there that arises. It's okay if it rises up. Like often as we change our relationship to thought, we don't know that we're doing this, and we'll talk about this next week, but it means that we are changing our relationship to the protective ego story that covered up the fears that the ego was helping protect us from. Because if thoughts no longer have that substantive, like, wow, they're super powerful reality, it means whatever they were covering up is still there and it's going to show up. And you might find certain feelings arise, certain fears arise, negative self perceptions might arise. That is okay. If you are willing, and this is all about willingness, because only you can intuit what you're ready for. But as you're ready to do this, you can actually see all that stuff. And that is a part of the natural unpacking that occurs through meditation. Okay, and number 6, this is very practical. Pay attention to your diet and to the substances you're putting in your body. I'm not going to go into an exhaustive list here, but basically your biochemistry, including the brain, is the limiter that you are wearing while you are physical. The body is a limitation set. It's not actually like a thing. Your brain is more like a reduction valve for consciousness. And when that brain reduction valve is more gunked up, it means you have a more limited state of consciousness. So, as a simple example, a very common one, sugar. Sugar will tend to send your blood sugar all over the place, and you will find, at least I have definitely found, that you will have much less clear meditative experiences because the brain doesn't have the same like steady supply of glucose. Your intuition can help guide you there, and you can note what you've eaten or what medications or drugs you've taken and how that affects the physical brain and the body as a limiter, and basically be willing to listen to that guidance and be practical about it. And if there's something you feel you shouldn't be putting in your body, don't. I know that's simple to say, it can be hard to do. But that can be really helpful with meditation. Like fasting can be very helpful for meditation because if you're in a period where the body is very clear and clean, the energy is not in the digestive system, it's more available. And that can have an effect on meditation because you've shifted the constraints of the body. Okay, I went on a little bit longer than I was anticipating, but hopefully that was helpful. So we can probably jump into the Q&A.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you so much. I felt like I was going through my own, like you were articulating step by step what my meditation journey is like every time I sit down to meditate, and I felt it was so helpful. And then I did also want to point out, this is something Christian and I have talked about before for anybody who this might be helpful for. Personally, I don't see anything when I close my eyes. I see blackness. And so if this is helpful for anybody, he did mention a couple of focus points, and I just wanted to add my few. One, I'm just aware of the blackness. Like Tom Campbell says, if all you see is black, how far can you go into it? So that's one thing that I do. The other thing is I like facing a window, and sometimes that will create like a light beam on my eyelids, and I'll focus on that. And then I like to focus on two sensations. Personally, one is on the bridge of my nose when my eyes are closed and on the center of my forehead. So just in case that's helpful if anybody else also experiences that. Okay, let's jump into questions. Yeah, I'm going to do questions first about the focus. So there was one person asked, what about a candle? So this is interesting because that might imply like your eyes open. What are your thoughts about that?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so everyone's relationship with form, including sensory information, is different. So it's hard to categorically label it. I think that more often than not, focusing on something that's in the physical universe as a start is it might be necessary, but it's probably only a training wheels step in the sense that we're actually trying to move past the focus on sensory information. But if that is helpful for you, absolutely. So part of the thing is it is completely okay to use the objects in the physical, the methods in the physical, the things that we know in the physical as a part of our spiritual practice, because that's the world we live in. We are physical beings right now, at least what it seems. And so because we think we're physical beings, we benefit from using the props in the physical as permission slips. And a candle has a lot of symbolism and power. So if that works for you, that's wonderful. I'm just lifting up that in the long run, there's probably a step past that. Now, I'll say one other quick comment though. Being mindful and present is synonymous with meditation. So even though we just talked about all these processes and steps and tricks and stuff, the thing is, this is about consciousness. Consciousness doesn't have to do 15 things to know itself and to be present. And so, if there's something in the physical universe, like a candle, that brings you to presence and brings you to alertness, that very well may help facilitate a shift in consciousness. And that's beautiful. You can intuit whether that helps you or not.
Mhm. Wonderful. Okay, Marianne asks, 40 minutes at one time to meditate.
Mhm. Yeah, I see Marianne's question, and there's a couple other questions here to thank everybody for your patience. So, I recommend defining the duration. I personally have not constrained myself to a time of day, though I have myself at least found that if I try to do it later in the day, like directly after a nap, is not happening for me. I either do it early in the morning after I wake up and I'm well rested, or I do it like in the evening when I'm quite alert. I personally have found being in an alert state is the best time, but I do try to commit to a duration of time. And so I would at least recommend a duration of time. Now, I mean, you don't have to be like super, like rigorous and constraining to yourself if you can't do it 7 days a week. Of course, this is a low pressure exercise. However, again, the discipline does help. It really does help to set aside that time. Otherwise, the form just keeps pulling us in.
Yeah, Karen says, I find that creating the intention to meditate for a certain amount of time opens that time up in my day. That's
Mm.
beautiful insight, Karen. And Robin asked a similar question beforehand. They asked, is it true that meditating a few minutes each day is better than one long period of meditation each week?
It depends on the person. I personally have found more benefit in one longer period rather than several shorter periods. But in the words of Eckhart Tolle, it only takes one breath because this is a shift in focus. If you can only fit in one breath of presence, do it. It's beautiful. Like you don't technically ever see linear time. I don't want to get off on a tangent, but linear time itself is a creation. Okay. So we don't need it's not like 1 hour does this and 20 minutes does this. And look, it's like math. It's not like that because consciousness transcends linear time. So a shift in consciousness it needs only a moment. It doesn't need 40 minutes. But for me, I found 40 minutes to be helpful. And I generally personally prefer one longer period rather than several shorter periods. But it's whatever you feel works for you. Try it. Try both. Just put in the time and try. Yeah. I see Kathy's had her hand up a long time, so maybe we can jump to Kathy. Thank you, Kathy, for being patient.
Okay, I have meditated for many years, although not necessarily consistently. I used to do TM a long time ago,
Hmm.
and I don't remember too much my experience of that. So I guess it wasn't really memorable. I did it
Hmm.
like a discipline, twice a day. Anyway, then as the years passed and I started hearing about awakening, and enlightenment,
Hmm.
I think that became my goal.
Hmm.
I try not to have a goal or expectations. So I've done guided meditations like non-dualistic, say Muji has a
Hmm.
bunch of guided meditations. And those kind of produce the spaciousness that you're talking about. And I also like laying in a hammock and it gives me that weightless feeling, which also does a spaciousness thing for me. But otherwise, to be honest, I feel like most of the time when I meditate, I'm just sitting there. And it's
Hmm.
like my mind is like, oh, what are you doing? You're doing nothing. You're sitting there.
Yeah.
Big deal. Like, because then I hear people such as yourself talk about bliss and joy and this and that. And
Hmm.
it's like, well, I don't know. Sometimes I feel a sense of peace, but otherwise I just feel like I'm sitting here.
Uh-huh. So just a couple quick comments. When you said the meditate, I just want to hone in on one specific wording you use. Meditate. This certain meditation produced a certain result. It's okay to think of it like that initially, but I want to lift up that the meditation itself has no power. It's only you as consciousness that has power. It's just leading you through something. It's still you. It's your consciousness movement that is producing any result at all. It's not the activity. So I just want to lift that up because it's important to return the power to you. Because I mean that because like we feel pretty darn powerless on Earth and we think that all the power is in the activities and in the things. There is a significant important shift that happens in consciousness when you question that assumption and actually return to like unburden yourself from the assumption that something else has the power and return more fully to the knowing to start that you actually have the power. So I'm just lifting that up as a subtle point because you have the power at any time, actually. Okay, but the question is why then doesn't it always, work? It has to do with this level of I just a simple dry term, but form association that we experience here. It means that we get lost and we are really close to the trees in the forest now. And that's what happens in the veiled human experience. We often really, really, really lose ourselves in it. So the shift is one that is always in your power. Even if you can't identify, it is always in your power to shift in consciousness. So what the heck does that mean? It's a shift in focus towards what you really are, and you'll have to sense intuitively what that means for you and how you can best locate that. Regarding whether or not, oh, like I'm just sitting here for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 2 hours, nothing's happened, this isn't doing anything. Okay. So I just want to point out something I mentioned last week that I think is super, super helpful. This metaphor has helped me so many times, even though I've walked off the edge of this cliff many times. Meditation is like walking along the edge of a cliff in the fog. So what I mean is, you don't know how close you are to the edge of the cliff. You can't see it. You don't know how close you are to that meditative peace, that bliss, that joy, that knowing of your true nature. You don't know that you're only 1 inch away because you're in the fog. So you may get frustrated and say, "Oh, I've been walking along this cliff edge for an hour. I don't see anything. It's just fog. Nothing's happening." But the thing is, it's important to recognize, at least intellectually to start, you might be half a centimeter from the edge of that cliff edge. And it is not far. And how do I describe this? That shift to walk in that direction is one that's done in consciousness and can happen at any time. So, anyway, more practically speaking, I would just recommend continuing and trying, and then follow your intuition as to what helps you. It's very low pressure, so if something feels good, go in that direction to start, and continue to listen to whatever the deeper guidance is. There will be these nudges, like if something feels dry and unhelpful, don't do that. It's like this is about a juicy aliveness, actually, not a dry nothingness. I understand that meditation seems like we're going towards nothing to start. That's how it seems at the beginning, but it's actually quite the opposite. Um, yeah, I don't want to go too far in that direction, but it's aliveness. It's not dryness. Yeah, I hope that helps at least some. It's hard to talk about this, actually. It's hard to speak to that question.
Yeah, well, and Kathy's not alone. There seem to be a few people who asked questions about, what if I am just bored? What do you do if you get bored during meditation? Do you include the boredom? Do you
Let,
try to ignore it, move on?
yeah, let me
Yeah.
say something about that. So boredom itself, this you don't have to judge yourself. This is totally fine. Boredom is a perfect representation of either a form association because now you're stimulated and you want the next stimulation, but it is also a very common symptom of the ego, just meaning that the ego wants to distract you. Like just stay distracted. We don't care what it is. Distract, distract, distract. That's like the ego's number one job. So it's actually okay to like challenge the boredom. Being alive itself is not boring. So, I mean, I'm not putting myself in any special category, but I just noticed I was talking to somebody 10 years ago, maybe 5 years into my awakening, and I remember them talking about boredom, and they said, "Well, how often do you get bored?" And I realized I have never felt boredom since I awakened. It's not possible. How could there be boredom when aliveness is here? Like, how could that be? Well, because the reason it happens is because we get addicted to that itch scratching. And so the boredom is, oh, you took away my itch scratching. Oh, I'm bored now. Okay, are you willing to sit with that and feel past it? You're worthy to do that. There's actually so because this joy that we're talking about at the root, it's the opposite of boredom. It is so full. It's so full. It's so like one like this is kind of getting into week 3 a little bit, but you might meditate and experience nothing for 6 months, and all of a sudden, maybe you're not even in meditation. Maybe you meditate for 6 months, and then you're doing the dishes an hour later, and all of a sudden, this peace and this joy just like pops up, and you're like, "What the f is that?" I mean, that's how it feels because it's so beautiful, and you realize that's what I've been seeking my whole life. And then you try to grab it. The ego's like, "Oh, I want to get that back. What did I do to get that?" Because that's what the ego does. It wants to secure this thing that just answered all of its questions, and of course it vanishes. I'm just lifting that up because it's not immediately apparent that the consciousness we're seeking is so alive and full of connectedness and wholeness that is the opposite of boredom. So we need to be willing to, not need to be, we can choose to be willing to even feel and face the boredom and let that pass and look more towards aliveness itself, which itself is not actually boring. Yeah,
Yeah.
hope that helps.
Okay, I see you, Ken. We're going to do one more written in question, then we'll go over here to Ken. Okay, so this one said, what are some good intentions to have for our meditations? I heard you say that I'm going to see what I am beneath thoughts is one intention that can be beneficial. What are others?
Okay. So really any answer that aligns with the quality of intention of love is a good answer. So that means anything that is actually aligned with freedom and joy and peace, knowing yourself, investigating yourself is a really good reason because here we are veiled and we're like, wait a minute, wait a minute. What am I? I- I'm consciousness. Am I really? It's good to go see that. But anything that might align with oh, this is so hard to describe because quality of intention is such a rich topic. Anything that may align with peace and ease and freedom and selflessness and service, even though meditation is about looking towards the self, if you go into it with that sense of like, you know what, I'm ready to actually be humbled. I'm ready to do the work. That's one thing I forgot to mention earlier that I think is really important, or maybe I mentioned it last week. It is so important that we be ready to be humbled by this process. Because when you really look into that silence and you really look into what you feel and you really arrive, it is it is quite ego shattering and beautiful. So anyway, I'm just lifting that up because if you arrive though with an ego-based intention, I'm look at how cool I am now. I'm meditating, or I'm gonna get really powerful, or look, maybe these people will see me, you know, whatever. That's, I mean, that's what the ego does. And the ego uses everything it can. It doesn't care the form. It'll use meditation. It'll use spirituality. It doesn't care. The ego will use it all. So it's simply about when you sit down, try to note to yourself, why am I actually doing this? Why am I actually doing this? And and the reason I lift up that investigating is a good reason is because you are worthy of knowing who you are. You are worthy, worthy, worthy of feeling the love, peace, freedom, and joy of your true nature. You are. And so wanting to move back towards that is wonderful. That's fine. That's good. It's just that too often the ego gets mixed in and says, "Oh, well, look, now I'm special because look, I'm doing this special thing." You can't actually trick your root intention. So it has to do with that quality that you're arriving with. I hope that speaks to it. It's hard to speak to.
Yeah, I think we're all eager for your next video on intention, Christian, because it's going to be rich. No,
Yeah.
Let's go to Ken if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Mm,
Yes, thank you. Mine has to do with fear. Um, when I was in my 20s, I meditated a lot and I got into this space that was really, really dark
mhm,
and it felt like hell. I
mhm,
mean, I was raised Catholic and it just felt like all these demons were going to eat me.
mhm,
And I, it was just mind-blowing, very, very dark.
mhm,
And it scared me so much that I said, I'm not going to do this until I get more mature.
mhm,
And it's only been like the last 5 months that the guides or my whatever intuition told me, you're mature enough, now you need to start meditating.
mhm,
So I have been meditating and I have been getting into those spaces where I'm just expansive and vibrating like I did before,
mhm,
but I'm scared. When I get in those spaces, I get scared again,
mhm,
and then I come out of it.
mhm.
And one time I did get to the point when I just said, okay, God, give me all you got. Give me all my fears, everything. And I just felt myself falling, but I woke up. But I'm still like, I get to that point, but when I know I'm about to be into that space, but I'm petrified. And so I
Mhm.
was wondering if is that something I should work on outside of meditation, on the fears of what, or is there something that you do to overcome those fears, or how do you, I mean, something that's so fearful.
Mhm. So in your case, I feel this gentle nudge to say simply at first, have courage, have courage. But more directly to your question, okay, when we take off all of the crap that's separating us from our fear and distracting us and protecting us, the fear was there anyway. It's just we weren't looking at it. We were still suffering from it. Fear tends to reach up in tentacles in our lives all over the place in certain subtle ways or less subtle ways, you know. As we really work past the the boundaries and the limitations we've set upon ourselves and the ego patterns that are protecting us from our fear, it's very natural to actually experientially get in touch with the fear. And I noticed you use the words, what do you do to overcome fear? I'm actually pretty sensitive to that verb, overcome, when it comes to fear, because fear only can occur when we're buying into a negative self-perception that's not in alignment with the truth. So it evaporates like mist when we're willing to actually go in and see what it's made of. And willing means we're willing to actually feel it for real, for real. Now, Tom Campbell talks about how many who are beginning to have non-physical experiences, fear tests are quite common. He describes, I don't know anything about this, but he describes how there are systems in place because if we take that fear into thought responsive reality systems, it can be unhelpful to those systems. So we get tested to make sure we can't, that we're ready, before we engage those systems. I don't know anything about that, but I can at least say that if you've got fear in there, it's going to rise up. And when it rises up, the way that it can manifest, see, if you begin to engage in a non-physical experience of any kind and you're bringing a bunch of fear, okay, you brought fear. The non-physical reality says, oh, you want fear? Okay, here, how about some demons, man? Or, how about some
Hmm.
hellfire? How's that? That's pretty
Hmm.
scary, right?
Hmm.
But it's really a manifestation of what all that rejection that's already in you. And when I say the rejection, it's your response to your own wound, actually. And the wound is the negative self-perception that is underneath there that you think reality seems to have proven to you. It might be a negative self-perception of I'm powerless, I'm shameful, I'm not worthy of love, I'm not free. These are very big, very, very, very big, deep themes on Earth because of the depth of the limitation we've bought into and the level of density that we're experiencing here. They're not simple. In fact, honestly, fear is the only hard thing. There is nothing hard except fear. Like to put it in simple terms, our rejection of the experience and of the limitations, our running away, our not being willing to feel something, that is the only real challenge. And so when we're ready, we actually can face and feel that deep darkness. And that is really, truly powerful stuff. True personal transformation can happen, not because we're trying. In fact, it feels like it's going to destroy you. I have experienced this. It feels like I came to this life to face fear. And I have experienced fear beyond what I can describe. And when that arises up, it feels like it will destroy you if you feel it. That's how it feels. The
That is how
metaphor,
it feels.
yes, that is how it feels. The metaphor I like to use is it's like a tornado that's going to rip your house apart. And you have to be willing to let the tornado kill you. And so what it does is it rips your house apart. It picks you up. It flings you around in the air. You're like, oh my God, this is terrible. I'm being thrown. And then you say, I'm ready to die. I'm willing to die. Destroy me. And the tornado throws you to the ground, and then it's gone because you said yes to it for the first time in any now moment. See, if you say yes to it in this now moment, you say yes to it for all the nows. And there's a profound personal expansion that can happen, and meditation helps to get down to that. So I don't want to go too much on it. Like I love this topic. Very passionate about this. The cheat sheet ending, and this I know this isn't helpful to just know intellectually, but there's actually nothing to fear. Somebody asked Tom Campbell one time, well, what if I go out of body and I see a demon? And he thought about it, and he was not being facetious, I think, when he said this. He thought about it and he said, give it a hug. Give it a hug. Because love is the true power. And love means acceptance and willingness to feel. And that will overcome anything in the end. Like, and one last thing I'll say about that, your consciousness is deeper than your deepest fear. I challenge you to find a fear that's deeper than the movie screen on which it is occurring. I
And
hope that helps some.
going further, though, into this on the topic of meditation, there was a question here from Bonnie, which is
Mm,
if you're meditating and these fears arise, I, where do
mm,
you suggest the focus goes? Do I go ahead and feel the fear, or do I bring myself back to the point of focus?
hmm That's a really good question. It's not a either or answer, unfortunately. It'd be nice if it was like, always do this, always do that. So her question was, if fear rises up, do I return to the object of focus or do I let myself focus on the fear? Follow your intuition. If the fear is rising up because it's a distraction, it's just a kind of a normal ego pattern thing, just go back to the object of focus. But if it rises up because guess what? You just decided you're going to look for real at what's down there, it's okay to feel it. That's powerful work. Like, yes, your intuition can help guide you. When I say your intuition, I mean, you know, like if you really listen in your bones, you know. So apply that when that rises up, like, wow, what should I do about this? Now, if you are choosing the object of focus in order to run away from the fear, that's ego too. That's okay. You can feel when that happens. Yeah. I that it's okay, so now there's one other point to Bonnie's comment I want to lift up. She said, lose time falling into a fear spiral. This is really important. I want to let, oh my gosh, this is probably a whole nother video if we had time, but there is a difference between feeling the fear itself and following the spiral of the 1,800 train cars that are attached to the fear and thinking about them all. I'm not talking about the second one. The train cars are all connected and the thoughts are all connected. That's not super helpful. What's helpful is finding what the cars are made out of. Why are they running on the track? Feel the feeling itself, the root. Go to the root. Go find the negative self-perception at the root. That's where the magic happens. Not in getting lost in 30 minutes of thinking negative thoughts. That's not what I'm talking about.
Let's do one last question. Sincerely, thank you so much. I think that everybody who's listening is so grateful for all the questions you've asked, everybody's asked and submitted. It is truly so helpful. We'll go to SK, and I was going to go to the one you submitted too. So they're both on the same thread, which is it okay if one starts to see shapes and patterns? I've been putting an effort from some time to focus and have realized that as my train of thoughts gets slower, I see patterns forming with my eyes closed. It invariably happens when the focus is sharper. Is it my ego playing tricks, or is it really something happening in the right direction?
Yeah, it's okay if you see shapes and patterns. And try not to get too excited. Like, actually, non-physical experience can be really, 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 really real. Like, super So if mild sensations begin to occur, seeing shapes and patterns, or the very common experience of feeling vibrations, that stuff is very, very visceral. It's okay. Let it. I have found, I don't know about shapes and patterns, but I found the vibration thing to be kind of like, I don't know, when you switch between channels of a radio, when you switch from one station to the next and you pass through static on the way, there's like static in between the two channels. It's kind of like that as we shift consciousness, all of a sudden the body may be vibrating because we're starting to engage in another system and the body, the energy body is like, that's new data. Anyway, you can just go with it and don't get too attached to it either. Just watch. It's just like physical thoughts about physical things. It's just form. Like I don't distinguish between physical and non-physical form. It's all form in consciousness. So you can still continue the meditation. In fact, I've heard boy, which out-of-body explorer was that? I'm not certain. It might be Bob Monroe. I think it was Bob Monroe. He said something like when you find yourself in an out-of-body experience, try meditating there. Meditate there, and that really propels you to new heights. Oh, maybe it was William Bowman. Anyway, bit of a tangent, but that's interesting.
Wonderful. Oh my gosh. This has been so enriching. I remember telling Christian, I've enjoyed this day so much because I was like, people want like the step by steps, like give us all the details and tips and tricks. And I feel like this really delivered today. So I hope it was so helpful for so many people. We will go ahead and stop our recordings here in a moment, and we're going to jump into the meditation portion. Christian, did you have anything else you wanted to add before we do that?
No, I'll just lift up one last thought really quick. So I'm feeling this nudge to lift up the value of who you are and how meditation is a discovery of that value. Like we tend to think, oh, I'm just this little person and now I'm going to do this thing called meditation because I'm really sad. It's okay if you feel like that to start. But what I want to lift up is you are a powerful multidimensional being. Like you are precious to the source. Like this is not a joke. Like you are real and you are really important. And I feel like there's value somehow in knowing that as we sit down and go into meditation and try to investigate what we really are. Like go into it with that, wait, am I really? Am I really that valuable? Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Anyways, I just felt like that should be lifted up.